Let's talk through the stories inside the papers. Andrew Osborne, barrister, broadcaster and president of Octopus TV, joins me. Very good morning to you, Andrew.
Rosie, it's such a pleasure to see you. And as you say, don't mention Brexit, even though it's 3 years today since we had the Great British Break-Off, and what extraordinary headlines we've been talking about as a result. The Times, and we talk about schools are struggling to plan for tomorrow's strike after basically they've sort of told the teachers not to tell the head teachers whether they're going to strike, which means that all sorts of people are in disarray about trying to make their own plans, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a really complicated one. So what's happened is, well, the government clearly is saying, please tell your head teacher if you're planning on striking. But the advice from the union is to say, you're not forced to tell anyone. So schools are left in this situation where they don't now know, this is the lead on the Times, what capacity they'll be able to provide in terms of lessons and looking after pupils come Wednesday. Andrew, are you in support of these strikes?
Well, I think that everybody's entitled to a fair wage, and I've said this publicly about every possible sector. As you know, my background's as a barrister, and criminal barristers themselves went out on strike because the misapprehension about how much barristers earn, and in your first 3 years as a criminal barrister, you probably earn less than a barrister in a coffee shop. So they worked out about, it's under £12,000 a year if you're working or trying to survive on legal aid. At the same time, there's the whole thing about critical services. And I think you have to play fair. We're going to come on to Kate Middleton later on, and the wonderful things that she was sort of talking about childcare. The real trouble is this, that the people going to be disrupted are the children. They're the ones who are going to suffer as a result of this action. And I do think...
But strikes have to cause suffering, don't they? Or they don't fulfill their purpose.
Oh, no, absolutely. I get it. But at the same time, there has to be a balance, doesn't there? And I think if you absolutely need to turn around and say you're entitled to a fair wage, you have to also at the same time say, look, where is the money coming from? Because across all of the sectors, everybody's turning around and suffering.
Let's look at the cartoon in the Telegraph. If you can describe it to us, Andrew.
Oh, it's a glorious... I always love Matt, and Matt seems to encapsulate the wonderful moments. It's basically got a little boy saying to his teacher, so you're going on strike because your friends are... and if they jumped off a cliff, would you do that too? Always beautifully done on that sort of basis. So wonderful Matt cartoon on the front of the Telegraph today as well.
Let's go to the front page of the Mirror if we can. And Neil Kinnock, he says, again, I warn you, not to be ordinary, not to be young, not to fall ill, not to get old. It is that blistering speech of 40 years ago about the cruelty of life under the Tories. And he says it's come true again. Is that fair?
Well, I think what happens, history always repeats itself. And I always say the reason history repeats itself is because people don't learn the lessons from history. And I do think it's difficult to be young at the moment. It's difficult to be old, as he says. You certainly don't want to be ordinary. And I think on that sort of basis, there are issues that need to be resolved. What happens with these wonderful speeches, they don't really give solutions. And it's not just political. It's across every party. There are issues to be resolved. And I think that's why it's good to come back with the sound bites, but you need to turn around and say, look, what are the solutions to this? And I always say that necessity is the mother of invention. What's going to happen with all of these strikes is we're going to see a massive progress in technology, and we're going to come on to AI and robotics a little bit later on. But what happens is if you basically can no longer have a workforce doing the jobs, then alternatives to that workforce will be advanced.
I mean, you might say, if we look at the front page of the Daily Express, that Neil Kinnock potentially has a point. 1 in 4 patients unable to see their GP. Do you struggle to get an appointment?
I don't, because I live in a very good catchment area, and that's the problem. It's a bit of a postcode lottery, but it is a staggering statistic to turn around and say 1 in 4 people don't get a GP appointment. But it goes back to the point I said beforehand about the solutions. And Sajid Javid was turning around very recently in the Times saying that, well, hang on, we should start charging people for GP appointments. And he was looking to Scandinavia, where they charge about £20 to get a GP appointment. In Ireland, where they charge, I think, €75 if you want to get a direct referral and you cut out the middleman. His objective is basically to try and cut down waiting lists. my concern with that solution is that it might detract, if you like, from people who genuinely need the care. And this is where I think AI, artificial intelligence, has a real opportunity to provide solutions. Because if every doctor's surgery in the world has access to the greatest research available as a result of AI, artificial intelligence, joining the dots, then they'll be able to reach diagnosis a lot quicker. We've also looked at...
I mean, Andrew, you might be listening to that thinking, surely, and the Prime Minister yesterday was talking about his vision, really, of how he's going to help fix the NHS, is that it's really simple. We need more money and we need more staff.
Well, and I think the third element to that, and more money, more staff is certainly right, but also embracing technology. And they've done various researches in the States that help earlier diagnosis as a result of AI. They've also got ways of making sure it's not just money, but it's also about various efficiencies. And the system is terribly inefficient in places. And I think those areas need to be addressed as well.
Talk to me about Kate Middleton. She's got this real campaign to look at the early years in our childhood. It's this campaign about just highlighting the importance of it. What's the message she's trying to get across?
Well, it's very simple. Actually, it was Aristotle's message from many years ago, show me a child until the age of 7 and I'll show you the man. She's actually saying the first 5 years are the most important. And she's right. She's got a wonderful claymation animation. It's available online. Go and have a look at that. It'll be in cinemas everywhere. And the basic sort of encouragement is nurture the child, because that's the most glorious time. They are our future, and it's about love and care and attention and making sure that they get the best respect and best start in life. So it's basically that sort of thing from the very early stages all the way to 5. It's this time as a star is a little girl called Layla, who's the star of this claymation particular animation. It's only about 90 seconds. Go and check it out. Quite moving. But she looked resplendent and has managed to capture every single newspaper virtually, I think, with her red outfit on, which is obviously the ongoing battle between the front pages between her and the other royals, the other side of the planet.
Yeah, let's not talk about family arguments at this time. 25 minutes past 5. One thing that has an argument that's fallen into the High Court and has got really embarrassing claims is Eva the Diva, as she's been dubbed. It's front page of some of the newspapers, but page 5 of the Times here. I'm a serious actor and a bad B movie would end my career. This is Eva Green. She's raised these concerns about this film, saying, look, she wasn't going to take part, but she would have done if it was serious. Just what's going on in this case?
Well, I'll tell you what's going on. I do know lots of the key characters involved. I had the pleasure, it sounds like a terrible name-dropping thing, but I had the pleasure of sharing a super yacht down in Cannes with a number of the central figures.
Andrew, you're supposed to be going through the papers because you're relatable.
I know, we love it. It's got to be good. So I know lots of the key characters, and I can hear the language. I won't repeat it at this time of the morning. People can look it up for themselves. But there are certain tweets that are referred with all sorts of expletives and how the producers are described and how there's sort of basically mudslinging going on. And it's all to do with a movie which, for whatever reason, didn't finally get made. Each side is blaming the other.
She wants £800,000 that she was promised if she'd taken part.
That was going to be the fee she was supposed to be paid for her appearance. And there's arguments about whether she was going to be basically rescinding that and turning around and getting control of the movie instead. All of that will come out in court. But the public love it when the law and entertainment worlds merge. It's a wonderful fusion, which becomes media fodder as a result. So it will play out. It will continue to dominate the headlines. Much ink will be spilled. And as I say, the characters, I know all of them. And they're all wonderful in their own way. But they could all obviously say a few things in choice moments.
Maybe you should invite them onto early breakfast and they can lay their case out here.
Let's do it. They'll all come to the studio. I'd love that.
Andrew, in the Times as well, page 14, a few of the papers have covered this. The BBC bias risk, apparently, from economic ignorance. There's this claim BBC News faces a risk to its impartiality because too many of its journalists lack an understanding of basic economy. The basics of the economy. That's a review that was commissioned by the corporation, so they found out this about themselves. There should be a basic level of understanding for the people who deliver our news, shouldn't there?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And good for the BBC to look at themselves and turn around and say, well, hang about. We started off about an inquiry about impartiality, and what we realised, there's some fundamental issues, and some of the fundamentals are such as tax cuts are always good, that's what you've got to do, public spending is always good, and they sort of say, well, actually you have to question everything. But to be fair and balanced in the report, they said, well, it's not just BBC journalists who suffer from this ignorance, for want of a better word. There are other parts of the media that need to look at it as well. And it's a fair comment. I do think we need to question everything. I do think that just regurgitating facts and assumptions is incorrect. And what I love about your programme, Rosie, is you do exactly that. You look at things, you do question everything, and you do come from it with a wonderful understanding.
One thing you might be questioning come Valentine's Day is who actually wrote your Valentine's Day card?
Hey,
Why is that?
Told you, AI is going to take over the world. I love it. It's going to be good. This is me name dropping again. I was commissioned by a wonderful Japanese company called TBS, who are the people behind Ninja Warriors and Takeshi's Castle. Basically, and they get me down to Cannes, apart from interviewing lots of people. I also help them launch new game shows. And one of their new game shows is called Love by AI, and it's a similar sort of thing. What they do is they encourage people who haven't, in the dating scene, haven't been successful, and they find, first of all, their perfect match based on various artificial intelligence.
No, this is surely there's an argument for human connection here, Andrew. I mean, the story here is that Moonpig, the online card retailer, is exploring using ChatGPT into its system, so customers will be able to ask the software to generate a personalised message or poem without having to come up with it themselves. That is miserable, isn't it? No.
I know, but you've got ChatGPT. It's just passed law exams. It's passed a wonderful business MBA.
It's doing people's homework for them. It's doing everything.
It can do your homework for you. It can also make sure that you get love. The problem is, Rosie, is that when you sit down, having wooed your date with your glorious words, and you always think of all sorts of Shakespeare.
Yes, you've got to then meet them in person, don't you?
You go and meet them in person, and you're scrolling through your screen trying to work out what you should say. This is what I loved about
Andrew, we've got to leave it there. I'm so sorry. It's been a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning. Andrew Osborne, barrister, broadcaster and president of Octopus TV. I'm going to take a bit of a risk here. If you'd like to pen me or Early Breakfast a poem that wasn't written by artificial intelligence, why not drop it to me via text? Text 87222. Start your message with the word Times. Lots more to come, but right now it's 5:30.